Thank you everyone for the amazing comments, subscriptions, and even some donations over on Patreon. I appreciate each and every one of you. I asked for 100 likes, but we actually got over 2,000. Thank you so much. As promised, we are going to cover the Tearlaments combos today, but feel free to leave a comment already to let me know what you'd like me to cover next. With that said, let's get into the video. Reinoheart is the most important starter card in this deck, as it allows us to easily summon our primary fusion Kitkalos with just one card. By normal summoning Reinoheart, you can send a Tearlament from the deck to the graveyard, usually Havness, which triggers a fusion effect to return Reinoheart and Havness to the deck and summon the Kitkalos. Kitkalos will let you fetch a Tearlaments card from the deck. Usually Merely, however, if your opponent activated Max C, it's best to grab Tearlaments Soliek, set the card, and pass the turn. If you already have Soliek in hand, you can grab Havness instead. Under normal circumstances, you can mill 8 cards with Kitkalos by activating its effect and sending itself to the graveyard to special summon Merely. Merely will mill 3, Kitkalos will mill 5. If you control Tearlaments Scream, it allows you to mill 11. This should let you dig deep enough into the deck to trigger multiple effects, such as fusions, fetches, or more mills. It is important to remember that each Tearlaments fusion can only trigger once per turn, which means that usually you'll be able to fusion summon 2 or 3 times in a turn. The fusion priority goes as follows: Kitkalos, Rulkalos, Reinoheart. Go into Rulkalos to negate special summon effects like Nibiru, but also to help you stop your opponent from summoning during their turn. Once you have used Rulkalos' negate, you can send a Tearlaments to the graveyard to trigger a fusion. At this point, return Rulkalos to the extra deck and get Dragostapelia out to negate an opponent's monster, or just get Reinoheart to spot remove a problematic card. Since Reinoheart is crucial in this deck, it's important to get it as soon as possible. Our field spell Perlareino can fetch Reinoheart from the deck on activation. Of course, we can search it with terraforming, but we can also use Foolish Burial Goods to send Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to the graveyard, which can then be activated to add Crystal Beast Emerald Tortoise alongside our field spell to the hand. This gives us 4 extra cards to get to Perlareino. Crystal Beast Emerald Tortoise is an aqua monster, so it can be used as a fusion material as well. Perlareino isn't just a searcher, it also boosts the attack of your monsters, and it can destroy a card whenever an aqua monster is sent back into the deck, through a fusion for example, making it extra important to get this one on the field early. In some rare scenarios you just don't have the means to go into Reinoheart, there are other plays you can go for to get your engine started. Merely, when normal summoned, lets us mill 3. Shiren can be special summoned by sending a monster from our hand to the graveyard and then milling 3. If you run the Ishizu engine, Kelbeck and Yugioh when sent to the graveyard mill 5. So one of these with Shiren nets you a mill 8, similar to a Kitkalos play. The other 2 Ishizu cards, Mudora and Keldo, can also special summon themselves from hand by sending Kelbeck or Yugioh to the graveyard. While not as efficient as the Shiren summon, this still allows you to mill 5 and gives you an additional level 4 to go into a rank 4 XZ with. Alternatively, Diviner of the Herald lets us send Kelbeck or Yugioh from the deck to the graveyard and becomes a level 6 tuner. Great to potentially go into Baronne de Fleur. Finally, we have Tearlaments Scream. If this is on the field and we normal summon any of our Tearlaments, we also trigger a mill 3. Next, let's talk about some ways to start a fusion summon chain during your opponent's turn. Our traps, when activated, let us send a Tearlament monster to the graveyard. This is great to trigger a fusion. Tearlaments Scream triggers its mill 3 when the opponent summons a monster as well. Tearlaments Havness is a hand trap that triggers when a monster on the field activates its effect. You can then special summon Havness, and it mills 3 cards. Herald of Orange Light is another hand trap that negates an opponent's monster effect by discarding itself and lets you send a Kelbeck or Yugioh from hand to the graveyard, triggering their mill 5. Both of these are great to trigger a fusion on your opponent's turn 0. As far as other ways to get rid of your opponent's threats, Mudora and Keldo can trigger Perlareino's removal by sending an aqua monster back into the deck. Reinoheart is a great summon to go into since it lets you bounce an opponent's card back into the deck and continues to do so once per turn when an aqua monster is sent to your graveyard. Time Thief Redoer is a cool late-game XZ because detaching XZ materials is part its effect and thus triggers the materials in the graveyard. Sprite Elf is a neat little toolbox card that can get you your Diviner of the Herald back, or special summon a Merely in your opponent's turn for the Mill 3 effect. And of course, an early Abyss Dweller is a great tool to stop opposing graveyard decks from benefiting from your Kelbeck and Yugioh mills. Now, we will cover Chainlink order. The main goal of chaining effects in a certain way is to increase our odds of sending the right cards to the graveyard. Because of this, you follow this order: Reinoheart, fusions, milling, search effects. The fetch effect will thin our deck and make it more likely that we mill a Tearlament. The mill effect loads our graveyard with more fusion resources and triggers. And finally, we fusion summon, and then trigger Reinoheart to send whichever of our 3 Tearlaments that hasn't triggered yet, or potentially another Reinoheart in case you want to go into a XZ play. Now let's talk about ways to counter opposing Tearlaments decks. Tearlaments can only fusion summon if they send themselves plus other materials back into the deck. So if you banish the triggering Tearlament or send it back to the deck through other means, the fusion will fail. Because of this, DD Crow is a great hand trap to use against them. And then we have Mudora and Keldo that have quick effects that let you return multiple Tearlaments to the deck. You can use Super Polymerization to use your opponent's Tearlaments to summon your own Kitkalos. The best part? They cannot stop it. You can also run Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries to reveal Kitkalos in your extra deck, and then banish your opponent's Kitkalos, forcing them into suboptimal fusions like Mud Dragon. If you are watching this video and don't plan to play Tearlaments yourself, here are some good anti-Tearlament cards for you to consider. You can run blanket banishing effects like Dimensional Fissure, Macrocosmos, or Masked Hero Darklaw. One of the best hand traps to play into Tearlaments is Dimension Shifter, which functions like a double-turn Dimensional Fissure. Just discard it, and then try to OTK your opponent in the follow-up turn. And you can, of course, run things like Cosmic Cyclone and Abyss Dweller yourself to stop Perlareno from ever going off and just stopping graveyard effects altogether. Dimension Shifter and DD Crow are my personal favorites because not only does it stop Tearlaments, but it is also great against sprites and branded Despia. With that said, I think I have shared all the information necessary for you to become a great Tearlaments player or destroyer, whichever side you might be on. Tearlaments is a great deck, and it is certainly a Tier 0 contender. However, we have plenty of tools to combat it. Just take your time, study these combos, and I hope you have a lot of success in your journey. While you are here, why not help me by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment down below? Also, if you love what I do and want to see me continue doing it, you can always consider contributing by joining the Patreon. Anyway, I am super grateful for any of you that stuck around until the very end. Why not check out these 2 videos right here? Thank you and see you again soon.